investments. Sustainable growth built on a diverse foundation.
This is the Business Breakfast, live on a Friday morning. Not just any old Friday, Friday the 13th. Let's find out what's happening in the business sphere.
Business headlines on Dubai Eye 103.8.
With JAFSA, a regional hub offering innovative solutions enhanced by integrated trade and logistics services. Visit jafsa.ae.
As you've just been hearing, M42, a joint venture between G42 and Mubadala Health, have just launched a generative AI service for the medical industry.
DIFC restaurant Zuma will open a beach club in Lumiere in 2 years.
The IEA, the International Energy Agency, has cut its oil forecast for next year on the back of a deteriorating economic climate, but it has increased its demand expectations for this year.
US inflation held fairly steady in September, rising but at a lower rate than the month before. However, economists had expected a decline. The Fed's going to meet at the end of this month to decide what it's going to do next with interest rates.
Meanwhile, Chinese inflation was flat in September as economic recovery remains a little bit sluggish.
You're listening to the UAE's #1 talk radio station.
This is the Business Breakfast
On Dubai Eye 103.8.
Spoke about the travel market in the last hour of the show and the fact that there is increased demand to come to the UAE. How many of those people then turn a holiday or a visit to the UAE to a potential relocation? Just how many people are applying for jobs and getting jobs here at the moment? Well, there's only one way to find out more, and that's to go to the source of the matter. Alchemy Search is a dedicated regional specialist that mainly assist in the financial and tax spheres, but also help in others. And they look to help in a number of sectors: accounting, tax, corporate finance, treasury appointments, and more. They bring expertise and experience to the region, and we're joined now in the studio by their founder, Conor McHugh, who's been kind enough to take time out this Friday morning to speak to us. Conor, good to speak to you.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Nice to have you in it. How's business? I suppose that's my first very simplistic question. Is it as busy as we are led to believe?
I would say this year definitely a bit of a roller coaster. 2022, I think recruitment was a boom year. Like pretty much every agency, that was our first year. We thought it'd be as good this year. It probably hasn't been, is the reality. Q1 was very challenging. Q2 got better. Q3, the summer sort of period is naturally always a bit trickier to predict what's going to happen. But we, I guess, got through it just about. September was good. July was very, very poor. So, everything that we sort of expected has materialised from that standpoint. And then hopefully now to the end of the year, it will finish strong.
And what's sort of driven that? I mean, again, the sort of little chat there in the preamble, I was talking about the fact that we're hearing stories of more people wanting to come to the UAE. We're seeing evidence of population growth here at the moment. That would suggest that there is supply out there. Yeah. But are there enough roles being created here?
No, in my opinion. There's definitely more candidates than jobs. So for us, I guess for most recruiters, once you get the job, you have a good chance of potentially filling it, as opposed to a market where it's sort of candidate driven. So, it is very tricky from that standpoint, but, as time goes by, it is going to stay like that. I think Abu Dhabi is growing quite a bit. In Dubai, I guess if you speak to any formation company, they're booming. Yeah. So, if they are booming, then more seats should open up, because previously, a couple of years ago, Dubai was probably a bit like musical chairs where you're waiting for someone to leave their job for that seat to open, and there's not that many newly created positions. So it depends what space you're looking at. For us, mid-level is probably our strong point. There's a lot of movement there. At the senior end of the market, for finance and tax, it is quite stagnant. A lot of people are going to Saudi, for example, if they can't get jobs here.
You make an interesting point as well about the fact that last year was busy. Last year was when we became a little more conscious of tax requirements for companies here. Since then, we've seen boom. I mean, if you look at it from timeline point of view, at what point does the sort of recruitment go on in terms of the business setup? Is that why we've seen a little bit of a lull at the beginning of this year because roles were filled last year? Yeah.
So as of 2022, so many people got jobs. Yeah. So naturally for us, a lot of people obviously lost their jobs during COVID. So if we're recruiting a job, if 4 of the 5 candidates don't have a job, they will look at most jobs. Well, now the vast majority of the market are in work. Yeah. So they're more passively looking. They will only leave if salary's right, roles right, everything's been ticked. So I would say in the first H1 of this year, all those people who are in jobs of maybe 6 to 12 months, they weren't actively looking. Now, as that honeymoon period ends for a lot of those jobs, maybe promises haven't been delivered from the company that hired them. They're now probably knocking on our door, and other recruiters are saying, hey, if you have anything good, let me see it.
And that's interesting as well, especially from a role point of view, because companies would be looking to fill roles, not tomorrow, but potentially beginning of 2024, etc. So what's Q4 look like for you at the moment?
So I guess Q4, you're pretty much hoping budgeting season's around the corner for some companies that they're going to get approvals, but then the other side of it is that companies that they haven't used their budget. And the CFO is saying, if you don't use it now, it's gone for next year, sort of thing. So there's a bit of mix and match, but it varies quite a lot because, on the tax point of view, a lot of these candidates, the candidate pool is so different than the finance pool, where in tax, it's very new, so you haven't got a big supply of candidates, and the vast majority of candidates are working in the Big Four or the other sort of mid-tier consultancies. They're all on 3 months' notice at all levels. So that's a big difference, which CFOs, the hiring people, are used to 1 month notice for finance people. So they're getting caught out quite a bit. In
terms of the tax, in terms of our sort of realisation and the growing pains of companies working with their tax commitments and responsibilities, what's the trend you're seeing? Is there more demand for tax specialists? Yeah,
big time. So from our side, we've a lady, Rudika, who was in here with you guys probably a couple of months ago. Yeah. We hired Rudika pretty much a year ago, and the first 6 months she was probably thinking, why have you hired me? There wasn't too much going on. A bit of consultancy work. Q2 and Q3, she's been crazy. Q3, she literally is drowning with jobs, in-house recruitment, in-house tax roles. And now we've another lady, Pooja, who's just returned from maternity leave to help her out. So we've 2 dedicated tax recruiters. But the big difference is the first half of the year, it was all consultancies hiring. It's like a bloodbath out there. Everyone's hiring, everyone is pretty much offering big salaries to get people. And that's the big difference for the consultancy space. While in-house, only the last 3 months that's got moving. Because CFOs, if they think about it properly, they're so reliant on tax consultancies to do all their tax work. If they get a good in-house person, tax manager, they will make the savings of the consultancy by having this person in-house sat beside them. They can't escape them.
So it's a similar sort of model as having an in-house general counsel or GC or something like that. So if you take it from a legal perspective, companies are coming to the realisation, in your opinion, that it's better and it's more cost-effective to have someone in-house.
Yeah, it's without doubt more cost-effective. You can still use the consultancies. It's not going to get away from that. But even from the consultancies, it's easier for them to liaise with a tax person, from the outside in. So because it's only going one way with tax, in this part of the world, with everything else, the pressures from outside the Middle East, that they are going to need more regulated and compliant. So,
and what does that, in terms of salaries, does that equate to higher salaries, higher demands from those looking for those roles?
Yeah, so as I said, we specialise in finance and tax, and it is very different seeing the trends with recruiting both those roles, where in finance, you have a massive oversupply of candidates, while in tax, it's an undersupply. So these guys dictate their salaries. There's counter offers happening left, right and centre, which again is pushing up the salaries. And because there might be a big difference from preferred candidate 1 to 2 in tax, while in finance, sometimes companies say, look, if we don't get this guy, we'll get the second candidate. We're fine with that. While in tax, there can be quite a gap between the talents, which is driving up salaries.
And the other big issue we hear in recruitment across the board is retention of talent as well. Yeah. Is that becoming, given the competition you've highlighted there, is that becoming an issue?
Yeah. So for us, what we're seeing, because I guess as you alluded to at the start, there's so many people coming into the region, a lot of people outside the Middle East where flexible working is a lot more common, for example. And now we're noticing with the sort of newly qualified candidates, mid-level candidates, that the first question they're asking is actually not about salary, it's about the flexibility, remote working, all these things which 3 or 4 years ago never ever came to the table.
Conor, got to leave it there. It's out of time on this occasion. Thanks so much indeed for sharing your findings and what's going on in the industry at the moment. Conor McHugh is founder of Alchemy Search. And you might have noticed that wonderful Irish lilt in his voice as well. So there has to be a follow-up question. Confident over the weekend?
Yeah, why not? You got to be.
For those that don't know, Ireland take on the All Blacks over the course of the weekend. I've got one Irishman and one Kiwi here in studio. They're avoiding eye contact. It's all started already.
Fisticuffs.
Best of luck to both. What's going on the roads?
Dubai Eye 103.8 traffic.
With Yas Island, Abu Dhabi.
Yeah, it's been a bad one on the roads this morning. When is it not these days? Yet another indicator of just how busy it is out there. 11E3, 11 both.